It is finally official after just 2 races into the 2025 F1 season. Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda will swap seats, with Yuki moving to Red Bull to partner Max Verstappen, whilst Liam goes back to Racing Bulls to partner Isaac Hadjar. From Racing News 365, my name is Nick Golding, and I'm delighted to be joined, as always, once again for a special F1 update by lead editor Ian Parks. Ian, deja vu, second day in a row. It is now official, though. Yuki Tsunoda will get his chance starting from his home race as a Red Bull driver, whilst Liam has gone back to Racing Bulls. Very interesting reading the press releases that have come out from both teams, and as I'm sure you're about to explain, there's a very key reason why this change has been made.
Yeah, good morning, Nick. Good morning, everybody. Nick, we're going to have to stop meeting like this. This is the fourth time in 5 days now you and I have done a video. In fact, if you go back
races
all the way to start of China, I think this is 6 and 7, maybe 7 and 8 for me and you. I'm not quite sure.
Doing well.
But anyway,
we're doing well.
We've got the news that we were anticipating, that slowly built momentum coming out of the Chinese Grand Prix, the rumour that Red Bull was considering this sensational swap, brutal swap. If you think about it, just 2 Grand Prix for Liam Lawson. We know there was a meeting in Dubai on Tuesday involving Christian Horner, the Red Bull team principal, Helmut Marko, Red Bull's advisor, of course, Chalem Uvidia, Red Bull's majority owner, and other major board members of Red Bull Racing. And the decision was ultimately taken, not just by Christian on his own, but by that collective, that they would go for Yuki Tsunoda from the Japanese Grand Prix onwards and demote Liam Lawson back to Racing Bulls after just 2 Grand Prix. Now, from what we're reading in the statements from Christian Horner in particular, the main reason why they want Yuki in that car is to help them develop this RB21. Those are the key point. That's the key point made by Christian Horner. They feel at this stage, given the issues with the RB21, which they were unaware of coming out of last season with the RB20. Yes, they did have problems, but they were hoping to develop their way out of them with this car coming into this season. However, it's now been proven that the RB21 is just as difficult a car to handle as was the RB20. The RB21 suffering with considerable balance issues, to such an extent that even Max Verstappen has struggled with it this season. But of course, we've seen the impact it's had on Liam Lawson, unable to get out of any of the 3 qualifying sessions that we've had so far across the 2 Grand Prix, qualifying slowest for both the sprint and the Grand Prix at the Shanghai International Circuit over the weekend. Clearly, poor Liam struggling with that car to such an extent that Red Bull has decided to make what I still consider to be a very brutal decision. I still feel that they should have given him at least the next Grand Prix, the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka, where he raced on 3 occasions in 2023, twice in Super Formula, once, of course, in a Grand Prix as a replacement for Daniel Ricciardo. So we've got, a lot to discuss over these next few minutes, but that's the bottom line. Yuki Tsunoda is in to help develop the RB21 and help Red Bull not only try and regain the driver's title with Max Verstappen for a 5th consecutive year, but also help it reclaim the Constructors' Championship that it lost quite spectacularly last season, given the dire form of Sergio Perez over the final 3 quarters of the 24 race campaign.
It's certainly such a big moment, though, for Yuki, the fact that he's going to be in a Red Bull for his home race alongside Max. And for Yuki, there is nothing to lose here. He's out of contract at the end of the season anyway, and potentially moving next year, given obviously his age in the Red Bull family. If he does well with Red Bull now, who knows, maybe he gets a new deal. Yuki can now just absolutely go for it.
He can cement himself in that team for next season and beyond, because of course we know what next season brings: a complete change of car, brand new power unit, brand new associated chassis. So this is his opportunity now. This is his big major chance to establish himself as, quite clearly, Max Verstappen's rear gunner, because we know that's the role that he is effectively going to have to play. That's what we've seen with Checo Perez over the past 4 years. And previously that, of course, with Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly when they were teammates to Max. So, as you say, Yuki was going to be out of contract. And you've got to think that if it had stayed at Racing Bulls for a 5th year, what would have happened going into next season? It's already a surprise that he had a 4th season as, in the junior or sister team, whatever you want to call it, Racing Bulls and whatever name it's gone under over these past few years. So he knew this was his last opportunity. The fact now that he's been promoted up to Red Bull, who knows what he can achieve. If he can prove himself, keep that temperament in check, which we know he has an issue with, which he has been working on, in all fairness and great credit to himself, then he could really establish himself within Red Bull going forward. Because if they want somebody to help develop that car this year, then Yuki at least has that 4 years worth of experience for Red Bull to draw upon, where, of course, Liam, completely inexperienced in many respects in that department. But why now? Why didn't they do this back in December? Surely
£1 million question.
Yuki was the right opportunity at that particular time. And just drawing on that, we've had some quite spectacular quotes from Helmut Marko this morning. We know what he's like. He loves to just throw those punches. And he's actually thrown in a boxing analogy this morning, folks, in his quotes, which is given to the Austrian publication OE24. And basically, initially referring to Liam, I do apologize. In initially referring to Liam, Helmut felt that Liam really started to spiral downwards when he encountered a turbo problem in third free practice. Marco says that Liam lost mileage there. He came up short. And what he has since delivered has just not been enough in any way, shape or form. That's why he feels they need a strong second driver, if only for the in-race tactics to help them, as we've seen in the past, as Checo did with Max Verstappen, to really be there to support Max, to aid his push, to give them a variety of options when it comes to strategy. Because at the moment, as Christian Horner pointed out, post-Shanghai Grand Prix, they are basically running one-legged at the moment, or had been running one-legged over those first 2 Grand Prix. But for Helmut, the reason why they didn't choose Yuki at the end of last season and they favoured Liam was because they felt he was too inconsistent. And that's why he said they unanimously chose Liam. But unfortunately for Liam, they feel he's had this increased pressure upon him and he has been unable to deliver from day one, quote unquote. And this is the biggest quote of all. Helmut Marko said of Liam Lawson, he entered a downward spiral. It is like a stricken boxer. And on top of that, it has been hard for him to get out of it. In that case, in that sense, his appointment was, quote unquote, a mistake. Wow.
And I mean, of course, it was the turbo problem he suffered in Australia, which was in a way regarded as his home race because it's the closest venue to New Zealand for obvious reasons. But I mean, talk about hitting a driver when they're already down. But obviously for Liam now, he has no choice. He has got to brush himself down. He's got to reassess and go forward again, because ultimately he's fortunate enough in many ways, because Red Bull owns 2 teams, that he hasn't just been axed from Formula One. He has at least been put back in the sister team, the junior team, Racing Bulls, which is an outfit he knows very well and quite clearly is also this season quite a good car. His career is not over yet.
Absolutely not. There are many people suggesting that this could be the death knell for him, but in fact, it's now an opportunity for him to reinvent himself all over again inside a nurturing team that he knows. And as Laurent Mekies, the Racing Bulls team principal, has pointed out, will look after him. Effectively now, they can put an arm around him and bring him out of this, because quite naturally, he's only 23 at the end of the day. He's still young, really young. He's only had 13 Grand Prix so far throughout his career. So he still has an awful lot to learn, as we know. It quite clearly now was an opportunity too much too soon for Liam. But and unfortunately an opportunity he was unable to take simply because that RB21 has proven such a difficult car to handle, and he was unable to get on top of it in time for Red Bull to say, okay, we are going to give you these extra races. We need to go now. We need to move now. So, but to describe him as a mistake, that's going to be harsh. That's like a punch in the stomach for Liam. That's going to hurt. So at least I'm hoping when he goes back to Racing Bulls, as I say, they can put this arm around him and bring him up, raise his confidence again. And in fairness to Liam, the one thing I've got out of him in the few occasions that I've spoken with him, he does come across as, and if you forgive me the pun, quite a bullish kind of character. He's not the kind that hides within himself with these difficulties. I kind of think that he will be able to emerge from this. At least I'm really hoping that's going to be the case. And I'm really hoping that we're going to see the very best of Liam Lawson, because we did see him produce good performances, good results for the Racing Bulls team over the previous 2 seasons when he's had his opportunities. So he's now got these 3 Grand Prix in a row to really try and again build back up his confidence that I'm quite sure will have been knocked by this decision. And as you say, Nick, in a car that, according to Helmut Marko, has certainly proven itself over a qualifying lap, but seems to be lacking in race pace compared to the Red Bull.
And what's interesting as well is, maybe Liam gets another chance back at Red Bull in the future, because I had a conversation earlier this week with former F1 driver Pascal Wehrlein, who was also kicked out of F1 at quite a young age. And he said that Liam's seat at Red Bull was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So whether Liam will get that once-in-a-lifetime chance again, we'll have to wait and see. That exclusive podcast episode comes out on Friday on our YouTube channel, so be sure to check that out. Final thing though, Ian, and this I thought was very, very interesting in the press releases, is that, of course, we know that Liam and Yuki, this driver swap is happening immediately from next weekend's Japanese Grand Prix. However, it didn't say when either driver will be staying in that seat for. There was no word whether it's for a few races, whether it's until the end of the season. Could we see yet another Red Bull driver change this year?
I tell you what, it's like never say never, isn't it, with Red Bull? No, as I said, even coming out of the Chinese Grand Prix, before all the rumours started to swirl, you would never have said, Red Bull are going to boot Liam Lawson out of the car, in time for the upcoming Japanese Grand Prix. So who knows what Red Bull may decide to do? Who knows what Racing Bulls decide to do? Maybe if Liam does unfortunately continue on this downward spiral, that he's unable to get himself out of it, according to Helmut Marko, then maybe we might just see another driver swap. I'd be surprised if Red Bull decided to engage in another driver swap now, because it has this experienced driver alongside Max now that's been craving for this opportunity. Certainly last season, that was the case. It was felt a Yuki Tsunoda versus Daniel Ricciardo battle for the Red Bull seat for this year, should Sergio Perez again not perform. And initially, Sergio Perez did perform, of course, over those first 5-6 Grand Prix. And then it all just went to pot for him. And despite the signing of that contract, new contract in early June, it was a disaster. And that's why they decided, Red Bull, to make this driver change. But of course, they got rid of Daniel first. But naturally, it was expected that Daniel would be able to force himself into the frame for this seat. Didn't happen, so they decided to get rid of Daniel, brought in Liam. Then it became a Liam-Yuki battle for the final 6 Grand Prix last season. And despite Yuki outperforming Liam in qualifying, despite 7-2, if I remember rightly, despite Yuki outperforming Liam in race finishes, finishing ahead of Liam on 4 occasions to 2, Red Bull decided that it would go with Liam Lawson instead. Well, as Helmut Marko has now turned around and said, folks, that was a mistake. So here we go. We've got this major driver change now, and it's up to Liam, as I say, to rebuild his confidence, and it's now to Yuki to prove himself that he is worthy of that second seat alongside Max to deliver that in-car development that the team is looking for and what the team is desperately wanting to ensure that it has an opportunity to make sure Max Verstappen wins his 5th consecutive driver's title, and B, it goes for the Constructors' Championship and he's able to battle both McLaren, Ferrari and Mercedes, because at the moment, whilst McLaren seems to be the car ahead of the others, it is still very, very, very close between those 4 teams, and it's going to be a fascinating battle for the rest of this season.
Well, only time will tell if A, this driver swap works for Red Bull, B, it works for Yuki, C, it works for Liam. Ian, amazing stuff as always. And of course, to those watching this video, please do let us know in the comment section below what you think of this driver change and how Liam and Yuki will fare in their new seats. And on top of that, if you can smash that like button and subscribe to the channel, that would be very, very kind of you. This has been another special episode of the F1 Update from myself and Ian. We will hopefully not see you until Monday's podcast. See you later.
Take care as always, folks. Enjoy your weekend.